Today, when I hear the word uh, corona, or when someone talks about being afraid of corona, I just cringe, because it reminds me of a very dark phase in my life that I'm still suffering the aftermath of till today. Hi, my name is Noor Alam. I'm 21 years old. I'm Egyptian living in Cairo. I study at the American University in Cairo. So actually, at first, I didn't actually believe in the virus. I thought it was a conspiracy theory, and I was generally enjoying my time during quarantine like everyone else. But then I got sick, and everything changed. So it's actually a long story. My mom told me that my grandpa's been coughing, but nothing more. And then that was a Thursday. On Friday morning, my mom started to get a fever, and she told me, I think I have the virus, and we tested her and she turned out positive. And that's when she stopped going to my grandparents. But at the same time, she started getting calls from my uncles who visited my grandparents at the time, that my grandfather started to throw up. And that's when we started suspecting that he has the virus as well. Sunday morning, I started feeling like I have this lump in my throat. I couldn't really talk. But deep down, I don't know, I was in denial. I always thought, Lala, it's just a cold. It's just a fever. Nothing more, nothing less. I was just wearing a light t-shirt when I went out and it was chilly. I never thought it would be corona. But then I knew instantaneously deep down that if my mom is positive and my grandfather probably has it too, then I got it as well. We called the doctor and he actually told us that I don't need to test. If my mom is positive, obviously I am as well. So I started taking my precautions. I quarantined in my room, and then we started getting news about, they took my grandfather to the hospital. He was being put on oxygen there until they found him a bed in one of the isolation hospitals. And things just started to accelerate from there. So my grandfather was the kind of man that, everyone looked up to. He was such a great man, to be honest. He was my mentor. He was my friend. He always advised me and gave me a lot of wisdom. So he was like the lifeline of the entire family. He was just someone that we all respected so much, yet felt so safe around. And that's the thing about him, is that he was a combination of everything. Someone that you really respect and fear, yet trust and confide in like no one else. So what happened was that after he was transferred to a hospital and they put him on oxygen, that hospital wasn't equipped enough to treat him of the virus, and at that point they were sure it was the virus. They tested him and he was positive, and it was a matter of time, and we were racing the clock by the time. So we started pulling every string we can to find him a bed in an isolation hospital. And usually the answers we got were, he's a senior citizen, we won't take him in, we only take youthful people or young people, because basically they thought that the elderly are going to die anyway. And the idea that I was sitting at home, very, very, very isolated from what's happening around me outside. I couldn't even go and sit with my grandmother. To this day, she still doesn't know that he passed away. When you have the virus, you really need to stay calm and positive. And I was trying to watch videos of elderly people that actually survived. So I had hope, but I didn't know that it's going to take a turn that fast. We tried to call the hospital. The nurse was very rude, actually. She didn't want to connect us to him. And my mom kept telling me, he died. And I got really angry with her. I started actually screaming at her. because she was getting on my nerves, she was putting me under a lot of pressure that I felt like it was very unnecessary. But then one of my uncles called my father and delivered the news, and now we were faced with the problem of that we were all sick. Even my uncles that were with my grandfather the entire time, they knew they were sick. So the only people that were not sick are my dad and my two uncles. They were both sick, but not sick to the extent that they had to sit at home. Eventually someone had to do it. Someone had to go and put my grandpa to rest. And so my dad actually took the risk to go and expose himself to two people that are diagnosed with corona. What was painful about it was, such a great man, and only 3 people and the doctor attend his funeral. So that was what was driving me crazy, and it still drives me crazy until today. The thing about COVID, or what it taught me, was that just expect the unexpected. Before corona, in February, I just gone through a very tough breakup, and I thought that I'm sick. My grandfather died. My mother is on machines. I'm having difficulty breathing, so I thought that my ex-boyfriend would call me and would be there, but he wasn't. He just called once when he knew that my grandpa died, and the only question he asked was, who's going to bury him? And that's it. He never called again. He never checked upon me. And apart from my ex, a lot of other people, that you'd expect would be there and would call and would just offer their emotional support weren't. They chose to, ignore it or let me be until I was ready to talk, or so they said. But at the time, I really needed those people to be there, because I know that some people just don't know how to deal with those situations, but at the time you really need to feel like there's still a world out there waiting for you. But what struck me the most was the fact that people that I don't even know well, people that I barely spoken to, people that I've known since I was a child and haven't spoken to in years, would call me and would check upon me and would send us food and would send us groceries and would send me stuff to cheer me up. And at that moment you just feel like, wow, you've really been calculating everything wrong. You've been crying over the wrong people. You've been giving your emotions to the wrong people. You've been confiding and trusting the wrong people. And it's fair to say that the time that I've spent at home, though it was agonizing, it really did change my life. It changed the way I perceive a lot of things. I've become more emotionally independent. I realized that relying on people so much to lift you from where you are is not always the solution. You might be stuck in that phase for quite some time, but it's when you suffer from something so great, and it's when you lose something so great, that you start realizing that this is wrong and that you should wake up from the dream you've been living in. It's not always that nice, and people aren't always that nice. Sometimes people can really be, I wouldn't say cruel, but they'd be selfish, they'd only be thinking about themselves. And I realized that this is not always wrong, and ever since then I've just decided to try to be kind to everyone. You never know what people are suffering from internally. So 6 months later, it's fair to say things aren't back to normal, and when I say new normal, I mean it. So until today, I am still afraid of the virus. I actually feel very insecure as long as it's still around, because I don't want to lose anyone else from that virus. And so that's about it.